Hello, and welcome to another lesson from Level Up Mathematics. In today's lesson, we will be multiplying and dividing rational numbers. This is part one of a two-part lesson. Let's look at example one. In example one, Melissa has 120 bracelets to sell at a craft fair. 1/5 of the bracelets are red, 1/3 of the bracelets are blue, and 3/10 of the bracelets are black. The rest of the bracelets are purple. How many bracelets are purple? So we know 1/5 of the 120 bracelets are red. So I want to multiply 1/5 times 120, and I'm going to write that 120 as a fraction. And so then I'll multiply across the numerator. 1 times 120 is 120. Now I'll multiply across the denominator. 5 times 1 is 5. And then I want to simplify that. 5 will go into 120. 5 goes into 12 two times. 2 times 5 is 10. Subtract and bring down, so that would be 2. 5 goes into 24 times. So 24 of the bracelets are red. All right, now I know that 1/3 of the bracelets are blue. So 1 times 120 is 120. 3 times 1 is 3. So I'm going to take 3 and divide it into 120. That would be 4. 3 goes into 0, 0. So there are 40 bracelets that are blue. Now 3/10 are black. So 3/10 times 120 over 1. 3 times 120 is 360. 10 times 1 is 10. And 360 divided by 10 is 36. So now what we can do is add up all three of these colors because I know the rest of the bracelets are purple. So I'm going to take the 24 plus the 40 plus the 36. 4 plus 6 is 10. Carry the 1. 3, 7, that would be 10. So there are 100 bracelets that are red, blue, black. The rest are purple. So I know there were a total of 120. The other colors, there are 100 bracelets that are a different color. And that would give me a total of 20 purple bracelets. All right, example 2. The diameter of a jar is 1 3/4 inches. What is the length in inches of the diameters of 8 of these jars? So we know 1 and we want 8. So all we need to do is multiply our diameter by 8. So I'm going to multiply 1 3/4 times 8. Now, to multiply a mixed number by a whole number, I need to turn both of these into improper fractions. So 4 times 1 is 4. 4 plus 3 is 7. So we're multiplying 7/4 times 8 over 1. Now, there's a shortcut we can use here called cross-canceling. If you look at your diagonal here, 4 and 8 have a common factor of 4. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So now I can multiply across. 7 times 2 is 14. And in the denominator, 1 times 1 is 1. So that would be 14 inches. Now, there's one other way we can do this problem. I'm not going to work it out this way, but I just want to bring it up here because some of you may like it better. If you know the decimal conversion for 1 3/4 is 1.75, you could have multiplied that by 8 and you would have got the same exact answer. So that's another way you could have worked the same problem. All right. Example 3. A student ran a distance of 3.5 miles each day for 5 days. Then the student ran a distance of 4 1/4 miles each day for the next 5 days. What is the total distance that the student ran during these 10 days? So what I'm doing here is I want to multiply 3.5 times 5 and add that to 4 1/4 times 5. All right. Now, I could do this where I turn these into mixed numbers. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7 over 2 times 5 over 1 plus 4 times 4 is 16 plus 1 is 17 over 4 times 5 over 1. I could work it out like that, or I could convert this fraction to a decimal and say 3.5 times 5 plus, then convert this fraction to a decimal, 4.25 times 5. So either way you want to do it is fine. All right, so let's continue with this fraction method here. We've got 7 times 5 is 35 over 2 times 1 is 2. 17 times 5 is 85. 4 times 1 is 4. Now I need to get a common denominator. I'll use a denominator of 4. So if I'm looking at this denominator 2, to turn it into a denominator of 4, I'd have to multiply by 2. So 35 times 2 is 70. And I don't have to multiply the second one by anything. So that gives me 70 plus 85 would be 155 divided by 4. Now I'm going to turn that into a mixed number. So 4 goes into 155. So 3 times. 4 goes into 15 3 times. Subtract and bring down. 4 goes into 35 8 times with a remainder of 3. So that would be 38 3/4 miles. All right, example 4. A teacher had $100 to purchase school supplies for her class. She bought 32 glue sticks and 32 boxes of crayons. Each glue stick cost $1.60 and each box of crayons cost 79 cents. How much money did the teacher have left after these purchases? So what we're going to do is we're going to take, she had $100, and then we're going to subtract the amount she spent. And we know she bought 32 glue sticks at $1.60 each. And then she bought 32 boxes of crayons for 79 cents each. So what we need to do is calculate what is 32 times $1.60 and what is 32 times 79 cents. So I'll start with the 32 times $1.60. That would be 0. 2 times 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 2, that would be 3. Drop a 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 6 is 18. 3, 4. 0, 2, 11, 5. Now there were 2 numbers after my decimal, so I need to move my decimal in 2 places. So this would be $51.20. All right. Now we have to figure out what is 32 times 79 cents. So 32 times 79 cents. 2 times 9 is 18. Carry the 1. 9 times 3 is 27. Plus 1 is 28. Put a 0 here. 7 times 2 is 14. Carry the 1. 7 times 3 is 21. 22. So 8, 12, 1, 5, 2. There were 2 numbers after the decimal, so move the decimal in 2 places. So this is 25, 28. So now what I want to do is add up what's in my parenthesis. So 51.20 plus 25.28. Let's see, 6. So $76 and 48 cents. All right, so now we're going to subtract. I'm going to add some place values here. Now, when I'm subtracting across, this is a lot of zeros to subtract across. So I do a little trick where I subtract a penny from each one of these, and that will prevent me from having to borrow. So $100, if I take off a penny, becomes $99.99. $76.48. If I take off a penny, I get $76.47. Now I can subtract the 2 numbers without borrowing. So 9 minus 7 is 2. 9 minus 4 is 5. 9 minus 6 is 3. 9 minus 7 is 2. So she would have left $23.52. All right, example 5. The 17 students on the math team want to raise $483.62 to buy practice books. They've already raised $218.25. If each student raises the same amount, how much more money must each student raise? So what we need to do is we need to figure out how much more money do they need, because they've already raised $218.25. So let's start by taking what they want to raise, $483.62, and subtract off what they've already raised, $218.25. So let's see, this is 12, make that a 5. So 12 minus 5 is 7, 5 minus 2 is 3. Let's see, make this a 13 and this is 7. 13 minus 8 is 5, 7 minus 1 is 6, 4 minus 2 is 2. So they need to raise $265.37. So there are how many students? 17 students. So I want to know how many does each student need to raise. So I'm going to take 17 and see how many times it will go into 265.37. All right, 17 will go into 26 one time. So let's see, let's subtract and bring down. That would be, 9, bring down the 5. All right, 17 will go into 95. Let me use a little ratio table to figure. 1 times 17 is 17. If I double 17, I get 34. If I double that again, I get 68. I'm trying to get to 95. If I double it again, that would be too much. So 8 is too much. I wonder how much 5 would be. So if I were to add 1 plus 4, I would get 5, which means I would have to add 17 and 68. How much would that be? 60, 70, 85. 85 is pretty close to 95, so I'm going to use 5. So 5 times 17 is 85. Subtract and bring down. All right. Now, I want 105 this time. So 85, 5 is too small. I wonder about 6. So this time I'll add the 1 and the 5 gives me 6, so I'll add 17 to 85. So 85 plus 10 is 95, plus 7 more would be, 102. So I'm going to go with 6. Put the decimal here, put a 6 here. So 6 times 17 is 102. Subtract, 103 minus 102 is 1, and bring down. And 17 will go into 17 one time. So each student would need to raise $15.61. All right. Example 6. What is the value of the expression 26.95 divided by -5.5? Now, in the cases when one of your numbers is a decimal and one of them is a mixed number, it's much easier to solve this problem if you make them both decimals. So what we're really trying to solve is 26.95 divided by -5.5. Now, I'm going to write this like this. You'll see why I'm doing it in a minute. So I'm taking 26.95 and I want to divide it by -5.5. But when we're dividing with decimals, the number we're dividing by cannot be a decimal. So what that means is I need to multiply it by a power of 10. So if I want to move this decimal one place, I would multiply the top and the bottom by 10. And that would give me 269.5 divided by negative 55. Now I got rid of the decimal in the denominator. Remember, you don't want any decimals in the denominator. So I'm going to ignore the negative for right now, and I'm going to see how many times will 55 go into 269.5. So 55 won't go into 26. So let me make a ratio table here. 1 and 55. What happens if I double that? That would be 110. That's still too small. What if I double it again? 4, that'd be 220. Now we're pretty close to 269. So I'm going to go with 4 times. So that would be 4 times 55 would be 220. So bring down, 6 minus 2 is 4, and then bring down the 5. So now we want 495. So if 4 times 55 is 220, what if I doubled that? That would be 440. That's really close to 495. In fact, what if I added the 1 plus 8? That would give me 9, which means I'd have to add the 55 and the 440. Oh, looky there. That's 495. So now I know this is 9. Now, our quotient is 4.9. The only thing you have to remember, and this is sometimes hard to forget, is that we were dividing by a negative number. And whenever we're dividing by a negative number, so we have a positive and a negative, our quotient is going to be negative. So be sure to put that negative symbol on your final answer. And that concludes today's lesson, Multiplying and Dividing by Rational Numbers, Day 1.